This week on Africa Update, African leaders hold talks in Ghana, Ethiopia over spate of coups. And African Union suspends Burkina Faso as Guinea-Bissau survives coup attempt. Rwanda reopens Uganda border after 3-year closure. 26 electrocuted in Kinshasa food market. Hello and welcome to the week's review of stories from across the African continent. I am Ayuela. Thank you for joining me. Now here is the details. Heads of states have gathered at the African Union headquarters to kick off a 2-day summit as the continent reels from a spate of military coups and the coronavirus pandemic. The summit, starting on Saturday, comes as the 55-member bloc faces pressure to push for a ceasefire in host country Ethiopia, where a 15-month war has killed thousands of people, and the United Nations says that driven hundreds of thousands to the brink of starvation. The bloc, formed 20 years ago to promote international cooperation and harmonize member states' policies, has struggled to address 6 coups or attempted coups in Africa over the past 18 months, and the power grabs are high on the summit agenda. 4 member states have been suspended by the AU's Peace and Security Council since mid-2021 because of unconstitutional changes of government. The African Union has suspended Burkina Faso a week after a faction of the army announced the removal of President Roch Kabore as envoys from West Africa and the United Nations head for talks with the coup leaders. The AU's 15-member Peace and Security Council said that it had voted to suspend Burkina Faso's participation in all AU activities until the effective restoration of constitutional order in the country. Moussa Faki Mahamat, who chairs the AU's commission, had already condemned the coup shortly after it happened on January 23rd. The AU's move came 3 days after the Economic Community of West African States regional bloc suspended Burkina Faso from its ranks and warned of possible sanctions pending the outcome of meetings with the coup makers. Now, West African leaders hold a key summit on Thursday as a wave of coups buffet a region struggling with poverty and a long history of turbulence. Emergency talks in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, were triggered after Burkina Faso on January 24th became the 3rd member of the 15-nation Economic Community of West African States to be overtaken by the military in less than 2 years. Adding to the region's turmoil was a gun attack on Tuesday on the president of Guinea-Bissau, Umaru Embalo, stoking fears that years of efforts to steer West Africa towards stability and democracy are failing.
The African Union expressed strong support to the efforts of ECOWAS in addressing peace and security challenges facing the region, including the resurgence of military coups.
The head of state looked and took several decisions. The first decision that they took was to still decide to maintain the suspension of Burkina Faso from all ECOWAS institutions, to reaffirm the condemnation of this coup d'etat, and they also requested the immediate release of President Roch Christian Kabore, release without condition. And finally, still regarding Burkina, the head of state decided to request the current military authorities to MPSR to very rapidly propose a timetable for the restoration of constitutional order. Today, they really stress that it is really important that we stop this coup d'etat, military coup d'etat, because those create more problems than they solve. It is against, as I indicated earlier, basic principle of ECOWAS Protocol on Good Governance and Democracy.
Meanwhile, the president of Guinea-Bissau has said that he survived a coup attempt after being under heavy gunfire for 5 hours. Omaru Embalo said that the attackers tried to kill him and his entire cabinet at the government palace. He said many others had been killed in the fighting on both sides. Local media reported at least 6 deaths, 4 attackers and 2 guards. The attackers were linked to drug trafficking in the country, he said, without providing further details. Gunfire erupted near government buildings on Tuesday in the capital of West African nation, where the president was attending a cabinet meeting. Now, the Economic Community of West African States on Tuesday condemned what it calls an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau and called on the military to return to their barracks. It follows reports of men in civilian clothing opening fire close to a government building hosting a meeting between the president and Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau. Last week, ECOWAS suspended another of its members, Burkina Faso, which is also facing uncertainties due to a military coup on January 24th. In the meantime, the Burkinabe junta has announced the restoration of constitutional order just 1 week after a coup ousted elected President Kabore. In a statement read on television, a spokesman of the military notified the population that the junta had approved a fundamental act. The 37-article document lifts the suspension of the constitution after its suspension in the aftermath of the January 24th coup. Adding to the statement, it guarantees independence of the judiciary and presumption of innocence, as well as basic liberties spelled out in the June 2, 1991 Constitution, such as freedom of movement and freedom of speech, as well as it secures power in the hands of the military. Under the Fundamental Act, the junta officially named the Patriotic Movement for Preservation and Restoration, ensures the continuity of the state pending the establishment of transitional bodies, a transition that was given no timeline so far. A military court in the Democratic Republic of Congo has sentenced 51 people to death, several in absentia, in a mass trial over the 2017 murder of 2 United Nations experts in a troubled central region. Capital punishment is frequently pronounced in murder cases in DRC, but is routinely commuted to life imprisonment since the country declared a moratorium on executions in 2003. Dozens of people have been on trial for more than 4 years over the killings that shock diplomats and the aid community, although key questions about the episode remain unanswered. Zaida Catalan, a Swede, and Michelle Sharp, an American, were investigating violence between government forces and an armed group in the central Kasai region in March 2017 when they were stopped along the road by armed men, marched into a field and killed. Rwanda has reopened its land border with Uganda after a 3-year closure, signaling a thaw in relations between the two East African neighbors. The frontier had been closed in February 2019 as political tensions between Kigali and Kampala spiraled, leading to the near collapse of two-way trade. Rwanda announced its decision to reopen the border last week as a step towards repairing ties that had been sourced by various rival accusations of espionage, abductions, and meddling. It followed a visit to Kigali by Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni's powerful son, Mozi Kainerugaba, where he met Rwandan President Paul Kagame. Former South African President Jacob Zuma's appeal in a case to remove the lead prosecutor in an arms deal corruption trial was postponed to mid-February when a ruling is expected. In October, High Court Judge Pierre Cohen dismissed a special plea by Zuma to have prosecutor Billy Dona taken off the case after accusing him of bias, among other complaints. Zuma, who was ousted from the ruling African National Congress in 2018 after nearly 2 decades as president, has pledged not guilty to charges of corruption, money laundering and racketeering in the long-running case over the $2 billion arms deal in the 1990s.
The occasion that we brought here was not about the removal of a prosecutor. The in the main application. So now, opportunistically,
The application for leave to appeal is adjourned to the 16th of February, when I again hope to be in a position to give judgment.
You're watching Africa Update. Coming up shortly. At least 26 people died electrocuted in DRC's capital, Kinshasa, after a high-voltage power cable snapped and fell into a drainage ditch. Details after this breather.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make an impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a 4th wave of the Covid-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
Thanks for staying. You're watching Africa Update on Trust Television. Now here's another look at the top stories again. West African leaders hold a key summit on Thursday as a wave of coups befell a region struggling with poverty and a long history of turbulence. Plus, Rwanda has reopened its land border with Uganda after a 3-year closure, signaling a thaw in relations between the two East African neighbors. Now, at least 26 people died electrocuted in the Republic of Congo capital, Kinshasa, after a high-voltage power cable snapped and fell into a drainage ditch. The incident occurred in a popular food market, and most victims were market traders and customers. The National Power Company SNEL attributed the incident to a lightning strike that severed the cable. An official from the state-owned company added that the Land Ministry had illegally issued permits for market stalls placed under the cables. Many traders also blamed the poorly maintained drainage system. Last month, Congolese President Felix had announced the rapid relocation of the market due to the dangers posed by its location. South Africa has launched its one-in-a-decade population census to collect data that will help the government's policy formulation and planning, the Statistics Agency has said. The census started with an army of enumerators counting the homeless, people in hospitals, prisons and communal living quarters known as hostels, among other places. People departing the country via airports or land borders just before midnight Thursday were also counted. It will be the fourth population count conducted in post-apartheid South Africa. Initially scheduled for October last year, it was postponed due to disruptions caused by coronavirus pandemic. For the first time, respondents have the option to furnish their details online. In 2016, South Africa's population stood at 55.7 million, according to official figures. Now, Ethiopian Airlines will fly the Boeing 737 MAX for the first time since the deadly March 2019 crash that led to the aircraft being grounded by dozens of airlines worldwide. Flight 302 from Addis Ababa to Nairobi plunged 6 minutes after takeoff into a field southeast of the Ethiopian capital. 157 people died. The tragedy took place 5 months after 189 people died in a 737 MAX crash in Indonesia. The twin disasters and subsequent scrutiny of the 737 MAX faulty flight handling system, known as the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, amounted to the worst crisis in Boeing history. In a statement to AFP, the airline said the decision to resume 737 MAX flights came after intense recertification by regulators in the United States, the European Union, China, and Ethiopia. Now, Lucy Anki's 3 children were infected with malaria so often she would be at their local health clinic in Western Kenya every other week getting them treated. When offered the chance to protect her children with the world's first vaccine against the deadly parasitic disease, Aki jumped at the chance. Take a look.
Millicent Akoth and her sister-in-law, Lucy Akinyi, have come to this clinic to vaccinate their children against malaria. It is spread by mosquitoes and one of the 3 deadliest diseases for under 5-year-olds in Kenya. Millicent has brought her first child, Humphrey.
I chose to bring my son to get vaccinated because I saw Lucy bring her children. After bringing her youngest child here, she has never had any issues with malaria, and so I brought my child to get vaccinated to be malaria-free.
Kenya is one of 3 countries which started trials of a revolutionary vaccine, known as RTSS, in 2019. It was developed over 3 decades. And last year, the World Health Organization approved it for use. Before, children with malaria filled pediatric wards in Western Kenya. Not anymore. Cases have dropped by 38% compared to 2017.
Since we started administering the malaria vaccine in 2019, September, we have seen a reduction on the cases of malaria. And even the children who get malaria, it's not severe. And the number of deaths out of malaria has also gone down.
Lucy says the family's income stretches a lot further because the children fall less ill.
The money that we used to use to take the children to hospital is now being used to buy the children food to eat. I buy milk for them to drink. The children are now happy, and we're all happy here at home.
Kenya records 3.5 million cases of malaria per year, and over 10,000 deaths. Dr. Simon Kariuki heads the malaria section in the Centre for Global Health Research in nearby Kisumu. He explains the wide benefits of the drop in infections.
If you reduce that by 40%, then you can see the impact it will have, first of all, in the families. They will not have to spend money going to the health facilities. They'll not have to spend money buying drugs. They'll not have to spend money attending funerals and taking care of diseased children, unfortunately. And also on the healthcare system, the number of children reaching the hospital is reduced.
More than 100,000 children in Western Kenya have received the new jabs by now. It is the only vaccine that has proven effective in reducing malaria in young children, giving thousands hope of a better life.
Now, Chinese and French oil giants sealed a landmark $10 billion deal to develop Uganda's energy resources and build a vast regional oil pipeline, a mega project that has incensed environmental groups. The so-called final investment decision was announced at a ceremony in Kampala by the heads of France's Total Energies and the China National Offshore Oil Corporation. The project aims to exploit the huge crude oil reserves at Lake Albert, a 160-kilometer natural border between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I will call it the D-Day. This is a day, to be clear, where we committed to invest the $10 billion which are required to develop the Tilenga projects and the Kingfisher project upstream Uganda, but as well this very long 1,400 kilometer pipeline from Hoima to Tanga, from Uganda to Tanzania, which is, of course,
Now, a dozen monkeys, crocodiles, 2 bulls, a few birds and snakes at the Kinshasa Zoological Garden. The few visitors expressed their disappointment at the absence of emblematic species in this attraction site in the capital of Democratic Republic of Congo. The Congolese authorities have promised to renovate this site where wild animals live in captivity. With that, we've come to the end of Africa Update for this week. Join us again next week for another time on the program. And don't forget, you can always connect with us via our social media platforms and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch us live. Thank you for watching. I am Ayuba Ilya. Bye for now.